yourself as a leader? This is a very, very common situation that happens to leaders specifically. And in this video, I'm going to share with you why this is an issue. Why do leaders struggle with speaking up for themselves? Leaders should always speak up for themselves, right? And I'm also going to share with you what happens when you do not speak up for yourself. And it's a lot more damaging than what you think. If this sounds like something that you are interested in and you want to learn more, then feel free to watch this video until the very end. Now, this is a live video, and there's typically a point in time where the audience will join our conversation. If you're watching this portion of the video, you are watching the replay. So give me a few moments when the audience joins to say hello, and then we will go into why this is so much of an issue to speak up for yourself. Now, this is a Q&A also, and if you have any questions specifically, whether you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, which are women in leadership, or perhaps you are outside of the audience, you are a man in leadership, or maybe you are an individual that is not a leader just yet, but you're thinking about it. This video will give you some insights, and my channel as a whole will guarantee to give you something to think about and a way for you to communicate at a higher level than your peers. If you want to be that person that stands out from everybody else, that is the individual that is able to lead large teams, that can generate more income for yourselves, and be at a place where you are much more visible, this is the best channel for you to be at on YouTube. I'm going to show you how to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure, which is something that is not talked about often here on YouTube. And speaking up for yourself is a part of that. I do want to preface this by saying that I did just record this video. I really did. And for some reason, and I cannot explain to you why, my audio was muted. There is a streaming platform that I use here on YouTube, and for some reason, something weird was going on. So this is actually part 2 of this video, but I'm going to go through it pretty quickly just in case the audio actually did work, because many people did say online that there was something going on with the audio. But let's talk about speaking up for yourself. Let me know in the comments below, have you ever struggled with speaking up for yourself? Is this something that you have had a problem with in the past? I will say that I have had this problem in the past. This is something that has came up for me. And I noticed a lot of my clients and a lot of individuals that I work with that are leaders tend to struggle with speaking up for themselves also. So let me share with you why speaking up for yourself as a leader is sometimes really hard. Before I do that, I want to say hello to Achilles Herrera. Hello. How are you doing today? Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. And have you ever struggled with speaking up for yourself as a leader? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Welcome to those of you who are on the live today. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from. And if you've ever struggled with speaking up for yourself, this here is the best place for you to be at on YouTube today. And ask me any questions, learn from my over 20 years worth of experience as a C-suite executive, a manager, and a director to help you overcome these challenges of speaking up for yourself. Just ask me below. We have Michael Zavala. Hello, welcome back, Michael. How are you doing today? Good to see you. Achilles Herrera says good, and Michael says hi. Yes, Michael, welcome back. Good to see you. Good to see you again. And feel free to let me know where you all are joining from today. And also let me know, have you ever had any challenges speaking up for yourself? Let's talk about it today. Michael Zavala says, good day to you. I hope you're doing well. So let's talk about why leaders tend to struggle with this. One of the reasons why leaders tend to struggle with speaking up for themselves is because we are the leaders. We know what's going on on the back end. We know about office politics. We know who is communicating with who. We know the hot topics and the topics we probably don't want to talk about. Now, sometimes as leaders, we feel as if when these situations come up, we don't want to say anything. We don't want to be that person to rock the boat, so to speak, because we know that the topic or what we need to speak up about is actually very, very important. So this is the reason why leaders struggle, because we know too much. Sometimes we know too much information in terms of what's going on, and we just don't want to say anything just yet. I will tell you that most of the time when leaders do this, it is to their own detriment. Now, I will say this. So let me say this. For me personally, do I feel like you need to express yourself every single time when something is bothering you or when there's an issue? No, I do not. I believe that there is a strategic way for you to communicate depending on the circumstances and the situation. And if you want some support with that, that is why you subscribe to the channel. So there are times when you need to communicate, and there's times where you may need to just simply observe. Now, I'm speaking specifically about when you really need to speak up, when you know there's a problem, there's a situation going on that you need to have a conversation with someone about. Now, before I go into why this is such an issue and why this can actually impact you in a very negative way, I want to give you a story or share with you a story that happened with the client that I was working with as it relates specifically to this topic. Now, I had a client of mine who was at a point where she was really a new manager for an organization. So before I go into that, let me see what's in the chat. Jeremy Bullwinkle 3972. Well, I want to say first, Jeremy, thank you again for saving the live and letting me know that it was muted. I'm so glad that you told me that, because I was just talking away, Jeremy, and I did not know what was going on. Believe it or not, Jeremy, there was a couple people that were making comments, and it almost seemed as if they were trolling. And so I didn't know if they were or they were not. But one of them was a troll, but the other one, you clarified what was going on. So Jeremy Bullwinkle says, sort of like quick to listen, slow to speak. Yes, Jeremy. So sometimes you have to just observe what's going on, because there's times that comes up for us as leaders when we have to say something. And when we do need to say something, we need to say it. Because what I found that happens a lot of times is that leaders, when we do not say something, it can actually impact us negatively. Now, let me give an example. I had a client of mine that was a new manager in an organization, and she was hired to complete a specific type of metric. And what they wanted her to do was very heavily dependent on how the specific procedure she was dealing with was scheduled. And what she found is that there was a lot of inaccuracies in the schedule, and she was not able to meet the revenue benchmarks and metrics and all these KPIs and etc. that they wanted her to meet. So we had a conversation, because I work with her as an executive coach, and she asked me, she said, well, what should I do? Like, should I say something now? I just start this role. And I told her, Jeremy Bullwinkle, just as we discussed, as you mentioned just a moment ago, and I appreciate that insight, it is sort of in the way, quick to listen, slow to speak. You have to observe and see what's going on. So I told her, as a new manager, since you just started and you've only been there less than 30 days, observe initially. Just observe, so that when you have that conversation and it's time to do what? Speak up for yourself, then you have data to support that and be able to give them facts based on what you have observed and what you have noticed that is happening that is preventing you from doing what you need to do. So she decided to wait, and she observed for several weeks, and then there was a point in time where she ended up having a dialogue and a conversation with her manager, and she talked to me about it, and she said, I feel like this is the time, because I can't meet the metrics that I need to meet, these goals they want me to meet, because the schedule is completely incorrect. It's not correct. It's not helping me be productive or anything. So I said, sure, this is probably the time that you want to do it. But however, make sure that you're speaking up for yourself, but then also make sure that you have some data and some facts in place too. What she did was she had a conversation with her manager and explained to her manager and told him specifically, I am really excited to be here. These are the things that I'm working on. I really enjoy the organization. I know there's this goal, these projects you want me to complete and meet these metrics. One of the challenges I'm facing right now is with the schedule. And she talked about the schedule, and she explained to him about the schedule and how there were several opportunities for it to be better, but there's some things that need to organization-wide need to be addressed. This is outside of what she can do. She can't tell all these other people to change the way that they're doing the workflow and the scheduling, etc. That was a bit above her role and outside of her scope. So she had the conversation. She spoke up for herself. So what happened? Initially, nothing happened. She couldn't see anything happen. But slowly but surely, she started to notice that people started to actually do things differently. The schedule started to be more productive. Things were where they needed to be. And things turned around. And so she was able to be more productive. She was able to generate additional income and move forward. Now, this is an example of someone speaking up for themselves, because many of you, and let me know if this has ever happened to you before, because I will very, very quickly say this has happened to me. You do know a lot as leaders, and we know so much that we sometimes will wait. And sometimes it's best for you to wait, but then sometimes it's not. Now, I will tell you what happens oftentimes when you decide to wait and you didn't say anything when you know you needed to. This is an example. What I have found that happens to leaders when they delay and they wait too long to say something about an issue that they know is either morally wrong, or they know an issue that for them is completely not the way a direction the organization should go, or etc., is that they look back, and maybe it might be a couple days later, maybe it's the next day, maybe it's a couple weeks later, maybe it's a year later, maybe it's decades later. They look back and say, I wish I would have said something earlier. How many of you have ever been in that situation where you wish that you would have spoke up for yourself a little bit earlier? Maybe the outcome would have been a bit differently. Maybe something else would have happened. Maybe that project would have went in a better direction. There's so many things that can happen when that occurs. And let me see what's in the chat. Jeremy Bullwinkle 3972 says, you took the words right out of my mouth. Okay, well, absolutely. I appreciate you so much, Jeremy Bullwinkle, for letting me know about that. And yes, sometimes we make those mistakes and we say, I wish I would have said something. I should have said something. I know I should have said something. And then what happens? This is the part of not speaking up for yourself that people do not talk about often, and you may not hear it that often on YouTube. But I'm sharing it with you because I've been in senior leadership roles as a C-suite executive, as a director for over 20 years, and I have seen the wonderful things that can happen, and I have seen the very bad things that can happen when people don't speak up for themselves. This is what I want you to avoid. When you don't speak up for yourself, and you look back, and we've all had those situations. I've had those situations too, where I said, I should have said something earlier. I should have said something. Why did I not say anything? But what happens is something that people don't talk about, and that is regret. Now, we all try to live life, for the most part, without having regrets. We try not to put ourselves in a situation where we regret what happens. Sometimes it happens that way. Life happens, things happen. But when you're at a point when you're speaking up for yourself, whether you're negotiating a salary, whether you're talking about a problem with a project or having a difficult conversation or etc., you may find yourself in the world of regret. And the world of regret is not the world you want to be in, because it's not just the fact that you regret it. Okay, that's one part of it. But what happens in here when you regret what you said? I'll give an example, because I've been in these situations too. When I've been in situations where I wish I would have said something, this issue continues to live in my head. Not now, but during that time period, it just stays there. And so instead of you thinking more positively and feeling like, yes, I did the right thing, I'm very empowered, I know I said what I need to say at the time I need to say it, the opposite happens. You start thinking, oh, I should have said something. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't know what to do. This is so stressful. Oh gosh, I just can't take this anymore. Our minds go into that negative place where we don't need to be at, especially as leaders. We have enough fires, and let me know in the comments below if you've ever dealt with fires as a leader. I have both my hands up. If I had another hand, I would put it up too. But we all deal with fires, so we always deal with things that are a bit more challenging than, let's say, our direct reports, because we are the leaders. Whether you are a woman in leadership, whether you are a man in leadership, we are the leaders. And when we have those situations come up, where we speak up and we should have said something, but we didn't say anything, it takes away from us being fully present because our mind is in a negative state because we are thinking about, why did I not say anything earlier? Now, I'll share with you specifically a scenario that happened to me is when I did not speak up for myself in a scenario when I did speak up for myself. I'll give them to you very quickly. One of the scenarios when I did not speak up for myself was many years ago when I was working at a specific facility. And there was an issue with the paychecks. And if for those of you who have followed my channel for an extended amount of time, you know the story, but you may not know what I should have done in this situation. So what happened? There is a specific organization I was working for. And that organization, for some reason, the office manager was not, something was just always going on with my paycheck. Like I was an independent contractor, and it would always be late. There's always some delay. And I just said, well, what in the world's going on? And the office manager would always tell me something. Oh, what was the excuses? Oh, I didn't get the chance to go to get the owner to sign the check, or it was always something that happened. Now, fast forward, there came a point in time where it had been days and I had not received my paycheck. And I said, okay, now this is enough is enough. This is not making any kind of sense whatsoever. And so I asked for my paycheck and I did get it, and I left that day and I said, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back here. Now, the regret that I have, and let me explain to you why I have a regret. The regret that I have with this situation is that I should have said something earlier. When I started noticing something was going on with the paychecks, I should have spoken directly to the actual owner of the facility instead of the office manager at that time. Now, this particular role, I was not a C-suite. I was not a director. I was just somebody in a role. And I should have talked to the owner and pulled the owner to the side and said, hey, I'm noticing that there's something going on with the timing of the paychecks. I'm not receiving them, etc. I don't really understand like what's going on. Fast forward a year later, guess what I found out, leaders? Guess what I found out? I found out that the office manager was embezzling money. That came out after I left. And I feel bad about it. Why? Because the situation that was happening with my specific paycheck, if I would have talked to the owner about it earlier, could have potentially caused the owner to think, why is she not getting her check? And he would have probably dug into the situation a bit more and maybe found out that this person was embezzling before the issues happened to me instead of it happening a year later. Now, that's a regret that I have because I felt like I probably could have talked to the owner and asked a question about it instead of being dependent on the office manager at the time. And then lo and behold, come to find out she was embezzling money. That's a regret I have. Before I go into a time when I advocated for myself and spoke up for myself, let me see what's in the chat. Jeremy Bullwinkle 397 says, how many? So Jeremy, tell me, I know I talked about a couple things. Tell me just specifically what you're referring to, and I'll definitely give you some numbers there for sure. Now, I will say that the one time where I advocated for myself and I was told not to, but I did it anyways, and I'm glad that I did, was in a salary negotiation. And many of you may have seen this, may have had me talk about this story before, but unless you watch all of my videos, then you'll know what happened. But specifically, let me give you some insight in terms of when I advocated for myself. And in retrospect, I look back and said, you know what? I did the right thing. All right, so Jeremy Bullwinkle says, I was trying to make a joke about you saying you worked for somebody many, years ago. This situation, Jeremy, that happened, and thank you for the joke, by the way. I needed that today. This situation that happened, when was this? I would say at least, I have to really think about it, to be honest with you. I think it was probably at least almost like 12 years ago. I mean, it's been a long time ago, like long time ago, when that situation specifically happened to me, Jeremy. So that is the answer to your question in terms of how many years ago was it? It was a long time ago. Now, let me tell you one time, and I'll finish up the live with this. when I advocated and I spoke up for myself. Let me tell you about this specifically. Now, many of you probably know this story or heard me talk about it. So when I was working in a role, I'm not going to specifically say which one, but I would say it's a senior leadership role. I started this role and I was going to be doing a lot. I was managing a lot of people. I was managing a lot of facilities. I was managing a lot of things. And when I came onto that role, I had a lot of experience. I was ready for the senior leader role. And one of the things that happened to me specifically was my favorite, salary negotiations. I could do salary negotiations all day. If you need help with salary negotiation, I have several videos here on my YouTube channel to talk about it. And if you're a woman in leadership, you're welcome to reach out to me and I will help you negotiate a salary. However, back to the story. So it came down to salary negotiation, and my manager at the time asked me what type of salary did I want. And I said, I want a salary of X thousands of dollars. So for the sake of saying what it was, let's say a guesstimate. I'm just going to say something out here for you. I'm going to say, let's say the salary was $30,000. Okay. And that's not the salary, but of course not. But I'm just giving you a number. Let's say the salary was $30,000 in terms of what I was looking for. Or let's be realistic. Let me be realistic. Let's say the number was, let's say like $160,000. Let's say I was looking for $160,000. That wasn't it. It was higher than that. But let's say I was looking for $160,000. Now, what I found out is that the manager at the time, who was my manager, said, oh, we were interested in offering you $150,000. And I said, well, I'm really looking for $160,000. Well, the hiring manager said, well, and it's $10,000. $10,000 is not a huge difference, but it's enough to where you'll notice a difference. So $10,000 is what I wanted. I wanted $10,000 more. So the hiring manager said, well, I have to go back and I have to check and I have to, ask some people and get that confirmed and everything. Well, they went ahead and met me at $160,000. As I mentioned, it was much higher than that, but this is just for the sake of us having a conversation to give you some numbers. Guess what happened? Are you ready? I hope you're sitting down. Or maybe this has happened to you. Let me know in the comments below if this has happened to you as a leader. Woman in leadership or man in leadership. I started the role, let's say, at $160,000. And as a leader, you have to know your profit, your loss, your overhead, people's salaries, all of that. You got to know it all. You have to know all those things. And I had to look at everybody's salary so I could have an idea. Okay, I know what everybody's salaries are. This is what we need to make revenue to offset our overhead. And I know what the salaries are of this individual, these group of people, and etc. Because I was responsible for a lot of people. I found out that there was another person, believe it or not, that was not managing anything, managing nothing, managing nothing, just working in a role, not managing a single person or anything like that. My manager was offering me the same salary that this person was making that was managing no one. Versus me, I was managing, let's say hypothetically, 50 people or so in the event in terms of what happened. So in retrospect, if I would have started this role and started this position and accepted that $150,000 that they offered me, stepped into this role as a leader, managing all these people, managing all these projects and etc., and come to find out when I looked at everybody's profit and loss and looked at everybody's salaries, that the person that manages no one makes $150,000 like I do, and I managed 10 times the work they do. Do you know how bad I would have felt? I would have been devastated. I would have been so upset with myself, and I would have definitely lived in that world of regret. I told you that many times people go through in leadership that you do not want to be in. I would have been so angry at myself. Angry at myself. I don't think I would have ever let myself get over that. Like, I don't think I would have ever done it. And in retrospect, when I look back at that situation, I am thankful to God that I didn't listen to people that at that time were in my inner circle that said, oh, don't negotiate your salary. Don't do it. Don't do it. If I would not have negotiated my salary, I would have been paid the same amount as someone who was doing nothing compared to what I was doing. They were not managing a single person versus me managing multiple people, multiple projects, multiple buildings, and etc. So I am very happy that I spoke up for myself, because guess what? If I would not have spoke up for myself, I would have been in a bad situation where I would have been paid the same amount as someone who was doing not, I can't even say a tenth of my job, zero of my job. We would have been making the same amount of money. Now, I don't know what to tell you, but this is completely wrong. And this, believe it or not, I'm not the only person this has happened to. If this happened to you as a woman in leadership or a man in leadership, you definitely need to place it in the comments below, because these are situations that sometimes people don't really talk about in the wonderful world of leadership. You will have situations that come up where there will be people that may be at a situation where that's not where they want to be, and etc. So you have to just kind of keep that in mind. So Jeremy Bullwinkle 3972 says, yeah, but 150,000 is a lot of money. So it is relative to your role that you're in. So for instance, depending on your role, so if you're very seasoned in a role, it is a lot. However, if you think about it, Jeremy Bullwinkle, let's say if you're working at a role, as whatever your role is specifically, you're welcome to let me know. If you're working at a role and you come in as Jeremy Bullwinkle, the best worker in the planet, and you are the person that is doing a lot of things, you've done a lot, and let's say Jeremy Bullwinkle, you're making $150,000, but you're going to be managing 50 people in the process, right? But then we have not as great as Jeremy Bullwinkle coming in, and they're not going to be managing no one, but they make the same amount of money as you do. That's not right. They can't be here if they're not doing what you're doing, Jeremy. So even regardless of the amount, there still has to be some type of hierarchy there, especially if you are someone that is in a leadership role that is at a place where you're doing a bit more than other people. I see this happen not only in senior level leadership roles, but even individuals that are in manager roles or supervisor roles. There's always sometimes this challenge, this back and forth that happens where you have the supervisors that are working, managing the people, but then sometimes what will happen is they'll have someone that is a direct report that is making the same income that they're making. However, the difference is that they are not doing the work that the supervisor is doing. Sometimes it can be really challenging in those situations, which is why it's so important, regardless of what role you're in, what industry you're in, to speak up for yourself. Because no one's going to advocate for you, especially as it relates to negotiating your salary and etc., better than you. And if you need some support with that, let me know. So Jeremy Bullwinkle says, I get all that you're saying, but what if you never knew that somebody else was making the same amount of money managing nobody? If I would have never known that, it would have probably came out at some point in time. So on my end, Jeremy, I was a senior leader. So I was a senior leader in the higher level leadership role. So knowing everyone's salaries and knowing not only my direct reports, but people that are under those reports is a part of managing a business and managing a department and managing an organization. So if I would have never known that, I found that the information, Jeremy, believe it or not, comes out often. Now, I'll give you another example. When I started working out at an organization in a lab, my very first job out of college, what happened to me, Jeremy, and for those of you watching the replay, you know this story. I've said it a couple times, but Jeremy probably hasn't heard it just yet. So what happened to me, Jeremy, is when I started out of a job, I went to a lab and I was just excited to work. I was just excited to be there. I had my undergraduate degree, and I was just ready to go. When I went to have a conversation with the lab manager, he said, what salary are you looking for to start. And I said, I said, I don't know, what salary are you offering? Wrong. You just never want to do that because they're going to box you in and tell you what you're going to make. So he said, what about, I think it was like $13 an hour at that time. And I said, oh, okay, great. Fantastic. And so I took the job. It was like 13 or 15. It's been so long ago, I can't remember. That's been decades ago now. But it was $13 or $15 an hour, one of the two. So what happened is that I started working, enjoying my job. Had a couple coworkers I worked with. One of the coworkers in particular was just very rude. He was just very rude. I don't know why, but he just happened to be rude. And come to find out later on, and I never knew why he was so rude. Just very unprofessional individual. Just, I didn't understand, how are you working in a DNA sequencing lab acting like that? But I just let it go. I just took care of myself. But come to find out, Jeremy Bullwinkle, what happened is that later on, as time goes out, I found out, and this is by someone talking to me, this person that was rude and not really professional was actually making more money than I was, and this person did not have a college degree. Now, I don't know the specific backstory of this person, but for me, I said, okay, I should have advocated for myself a bit more and negotiated my salary. And that was the first time that happened to me in my career, and that was the last time that happened to me in my career. Ever since then, Jeremy Bullwinkle, I have been extremely aggressive as it relates to negotiating salaries. And I know you asked a question about, well, what if I had never known? I will tell you this, Jeremy, and this is a secret, and if you haven't experienced this yet, you may at some point. One of the things that comes out, and it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way a lot of times, people's salaries will eventually come out. And I know it's not right, and I don't know why people do it, but people talk quite a bit. And in this particular situation, I personally would have known what this individual's salary was because it was my responsibility to know. I had to know everybody's salary because the department I was working for at the time was below negative in terms of revenue, and I had to bring it up. So I can't bring it up unless I know what parameters am I working with, how much is everybody making, what is our revenue, what is our supply cost, what is all those things that come up together when you have to think about it when you are in a executive level role. So salaries tend to come out quite a bit. They do. Eventually people find out what their salaries are, and depending on the job you have, if you have a job with if you are considered like a public servant individual, your salaries are public, believe it or not. This is something that you can find online for many public servants, what their salaries are. So I hope that gives you some insight, Jeremy Bullwinkle, in terms of why this happens. And I know you understand that if someone's doing one thing and another person's doing something not at that level, of course there should be a difference in their salaries. One salary should be a little higher because there's a lot more that they're dealing with compared to somebody that's not. But ultimately, sometimes you'll find it out. You'll find out what happens to those salaries. And Jeremy, I'll tell you, with the senior level, the leadership role I was talking to you about, I would have lived in regret for that for a long time if I would not have negotiated my salary. And now in retrospect, of course, once I found that out, I said, okay, I'm so thankful to God that I actually negotiated my salary, because if I didn't, I would not have been in the best situation that I was in. So it can make it really, really challenging sometimes, but you have to negotiate your salary. You have a lot of expertise, Jeremy Bullwinkle. I know there's a lot of amazing things you've done because you're watching this video. And my videos are really catered to a certain type of individual that is truly doing amazing things in the world or in their roles. They're not the average leaders, I would say. And so in your case, just make sure you're negotiating your salary and always, always, always doing what you can to just make sure that you speak up for yourself, because there's situations that come up. We just don't want to live in the world of regret. I don't want to live in the world of regret. I don't like living in the world of regret. Sometimes you have to speak up, especially when things appear to be morally wrong. And I've been in situations where I've had morally wrong things happening around me, and I had to speak up and say something about it because I have to sleep at night. And I don't want to be the person that's tossing and turning because someone did this wrong or they did that wrong. And it's just, I don't like that on my conscience. So it's always best to do what you can, speak up when you need to, but just be very strategic about it specifically. So Jeremy Bullwinkle says, I'm actually blue collar and I build homes. So I have a very deep appreciation for that, Jeremy. I did a lot. I've done over the years, uh, not necessarily homes specifically, because I've been more on the commercial side of it, but in terms of building out new buildings and healthcare facilities and etc. So I've been managing some of those projects also. So I have a very deep appreciation for you and what you do, because it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work, especially that goes into building houses. And you would be just amazed, Jeremy. I'm sure you would say the same thing also. Sometimes people have no idea what goes into building a house. They just see the house and like, oh, the house looks great. But where's the plumbing? Where's the electrical? How's everything set up? All of that comes into play. So in the roles I've been in, I've been managing the development of the buildings and etc. And I have a very, very, very deep appreciation for anyone that builds homes, businesses, and etc. because it's a lot. There's a lot that happens. And Jeremy, I'm sure we could talk all day about different stories of things that you've probably seen in homes, or any issues that you've had come up while you're building, that people sometimes say, oh, wow, I had absolutely no idea that this happened. So there's just so many things that come up. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And definitely there's situations where you have to communicate under pressure too, especially if you're communicating with your coworkers or your peers, or you might be communicating with your supervisor, or maybe with potentially the homeowner, etc. There's always things that happen where people, get upset, and you have to determine, am I going under pressure, or is this an okay conversation? I just want you to always be ready to just, if you need to switch gears and be able to communicate in a very challenging situation, that you feel very comfortable with some of the strategies and the techniques I share here on my YouTube channel to help you be in a place where you're not worried if a situation comes up and someone gets upset, a situation escalates. You know exactly what you need to do, how you need to do it, how you need to say it, and just do the very best that you can so that you are de-escalating the situation. So I know you've been through a lot. I know just in construction in general, there is a lot. I mean, that is probably, I don't want to say the most, because there's so many fields out there where there's a lot of challenging situations and challenging conversations that happen. But construction, building homes, building buildings, can be very, 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 very contentious, depending on the situation, what's going on, are there delays? I have heard people in the past get really upset because their houses are delayed, they have to start paying their mortgage, they can't live in it, or there's something going on with their building, etc. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the construction team. Sometimes it may be materials. It may be situations that are just completely out of everyone's control that they are not able to do. I know there was a person I was speaking to previously, and this is not here in mainland United States. This is in the islands. But she was at a place where she was doing some work on her home. There was something happening because the price of lumber was so high. And this is something that she was dealing with. Believe it or not, guess what happened? Some of the people working on her home was the people at the Home Depot was stealing her tile. The construction people were coming. The workers were coming to get the tile. The tile was suddenly just disappear. It wouldn't be there anymore. And they had to let her know that. And then she was upset and she got mad at them. But they didn't have anything to do with it. So there's just so many things that just happened, Jeremy. And as I mentioned, I have a deep appreciation now. Before I was an executive, I can say no because I just didn't know. But now that I've managed projects, I've built things, been a part of that, not built them directly myself, but been the designer of it and saying, no, we need this here, as it relates to large commercial facilities and healthcare and etc. I just appreciate you all so much because there's so much that you all deal with and you work so hard. I appreciate y'all. Jeremy Bullwinkle says, when do you normally come on YouTube? Do you have specific hours? So Jeremy, normally I don't have specific hours. It just depends. But I will say this, majority of the time, Jeremy, I am live Tuesday through Friday in the morning, in the evening. And in the morning time, it just depends. I'm in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'm based out of South Florida. Sometimes in the morning times on Tuesday through Friday, it's usually around, it could be 8:15, 8:30. It just varies. Just depends on when I go live. If you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification icon, I believe it does let you know when I go live, because I have a lot of my audience members that join when I'm live. In the evening time, it really just depends on what's going on in the evening for me. It's typically around about the time when you joined earlier is when I go live after I've taken care of a couple things with my kids and etc. But it just really just varies. But the time frame is usually around about this time, usually around about 7:30-ish or so. It just depends. But I don't have specific times I'm on YouTube. You just have to catch me when I'm live. And if you can't join the live, you're always welcome to watch the replay. A lot of my audience watches the replay because they're very busy. So feel free to watch the replay. And if you have any questions specifically about any challenging situations you're dealing with, maybe you're having a difficult conversation you're trying to plan for with a coworker or with the manager, or anything that's professional related, I'm here to support you any way that I can and help you navigate those challenges. If you're trying to speak better, communicate better, elevate how you are presenting yourself, this is the place to be. Just put anything in the comments below. Ask me any questions and I will absolutely do a video just for you and give you a shout out on that video as well. So feel free to just ask me anything. I'm here to support you any way I can. Even if you are starting out in your leadership journey and you're developing it, and you're trying, or maybe you're not a leader yet and you're trying to get to a leadership type of role, then let me know. The information I share with you will help you be able to really get to that next level and think about things a bit differently, because how people present themselves as leaders really does make a big difference in terms of how you are able to accelerate your growth. A lot of it comes down to communication. People fail to forget that, but it's not just your regular communication. There's plenty of YouTube channels that talk about this. This channel, my channel specifically, I talk about communicating under pressure, because that's what a lot of people are missing. And a lot of leaders struggle with communicating under pressure because they just don't know how to do it. So that's why I'm here to support you. Jeremy Bullwinkle says, I'm in Northern Indiana. Okay, great. But I will try to find that icon that you're talking about. I do enjoy listening to you. Well, thank you, Jeremy Bullwinkle. I appreciate you being here. And I believe it's when you subscribe. If you're on the mobile version, it looks like a bell. It looks like a bell and you just hit the notification. Sometimes you can put all notifications. Sometimes you can put personalized notifications. It just depends on what you want to get out of the channel. There's a lot of things that I talk about. And if there's anything specifically, Jeremy, that you want to learn more about, you're welcome. Just let me know. I'll do a video for you, especially as it relates to communicating under pressure, being more confident, becoming a leader, presenting yourself as that person that is going to be able to take care of things, which I'm sure you are. But anything heavily focused I do on this channel is leadership and communication in more challenging situations. So people typically come to me for the hard things, for the really hard situations, the very controversial situations that are happening with them in a professional setting, and they're just not quite sure how to manage it. There's a lot of videos. I know I mentioned this. You may have heard these earlier, but a couple videos on my live tab you may want to check out that are more popular ones, I would say, that people start off with in terms of speaking better and communicating at a higher level than their peers, is thinking on your feet, body language, managing your emotions under pressure, difficult conversations, tone of voice, and eye contact, if I didn't say that. Any video on my live tab, and I have a lot of videos. I'm about to put the videos into a playlist because I did not realize I had over 900 videos on this channel. Half of them are shorts, half of them are lives. So I'm gonna put them in some type of playlist so it makes it a little easier for you, because I do live stream quite a bit, and I live streamed so much that I did not know this, but last year YouTube reached out to me and contacted me to be on their YouTube live streamer research panel because I live stream so much. I didn't know I was doing that many lives, but apparently I did. And so I do have a lot of lives. I am going to transition into continuing doing my lives to be present for my audience and support you all. But then I'm going to go into my pre-recorded videos too, where I look at different leaders or situations that happen and talk to you about, from a public speaking standpoint, a communication standpoint as a leader, what can you take from this person, how they're speaking, and how can you use something that influences you or inspires you to inspire other people as a leader, or situations that come up worldwide that happen and we're trying to figure out what's going on. I focus on the communication side of things. So we have 12345 Bentley. Hello, how you doing today? 12345 Bentley says Jesus loves you. Absolutely, yes, that is very, very true. I love Jesus too. So I hope this gives you some insight for some of you that are watching the replay and watching live. Jeremy Bullwinkle, as I mentioned, you saved the day, friend. You really did, because the issue with the previous live, I still don't know what happened with that, but at least I'm able to communicate with you here and hopefully give you something to think about as it relates to negotiating salaries and just speaking up for yourself as a leader. So if you all have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm here to support you any way that I can, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.